Today, two of the most craven of all Senate Republicans, Josh Hawley, fist in the air Josh, and slaveholder descendant Tom Cotton, reprised their QAnon-baiting smears against Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, drilling down on her sentence in one particular case involving child pornography. As a testament to her unimpeachable qualifications, however, Judge Jackson did not back down.
There's your signature over there, Judge. You really don't remember what?
Senator, that is a very, very common thing that judges do. I've sentenced over 100 people.
I understand you've done a lot, Judge, but none of them have been the centerpiece of your hearing for the last 2 days. Do you really expect this committee to believe that you don't remember what happened in this Hawkins case when it came back before you?
Yes, Senator, I do expect you to believe that's my testimony.
Well, I don't find it credible, Judge.
Judge, you gave him 3 months. My question is, do you regret it or not?
Senator, what I regret is that in a hearing about my qualifications to be a justice on the Supreme Court, we've spent a lot of time focusing on this small subset of my sentences.
Joining me now is Joyce Vance, former U.S. attorney and professor at the University of Alabama School of Law, and Charles Coleman, Jr., civil rights attorney and a former prosecutor. I don't even know where to go first on this, except to say, and I will throw this out first to you, Joyce. Maya Wiley tweeted that the idea of that man, Tom Cotton, telling a sitting federal judge, twice confirmed with the votes of Lindsey Graham, by the way, that she's a liar, to say, do you expect us to believe you, was one of the most offensive, Maya Wiley said, things that she has ever seen in a confirmation hearing. I want to throw that to you as well. To tell this woman who is a sitting federal judge that she's a liar, it was a you lie moment for me. What about you?
I feel the same way. So much of this was political theater. It had nothing to do with the judge's qualifications. And the real loser was the American people who were tuned in for this hearing. I was stunned to receive text messages from friends all afternoon who I would not have thought of as people who watched Supreme Court confirmation hearings, commenting on what was going on. And where Judge Jackson was at her finest, where she really shines, is her ability to explain important concepts in American law in a way that's accessible to people who aren't lawyers. When she talked about the Fourth Amendment right to be free from unlawful search and seizure, or when she explained the right to counsel under Gideon versus Wainwright, and what these Republican senators deprived the country of in a very meaningful way was an opportunity to hear from her. I'm glad that they'll just be a footnote in history here, because we have decades of her brilliant opinions to look forward to. She will make the law so much more accessible and the court so much more readily understandable. Ultimately, we win despite their shameful performances this week.
No, indeed. And, Charles Coleman, I also was getting texts all day and have been for the last 3 days for people who, similarly to what Joyce is saying, would normally not sit there and watch all day a confirmation hearing, as I would because I'm a nerd. And the outrage is real. And a lot of it was about the blatant disrespect. I tweeted that they were treating her like a black shopper that they were following through the store. Just the ultimate disrespect for her as a human being, as a judge, the fact that her family was there, all because in Lindsey Graham's view, apparently this whole hearing was payback for Kavanaugh, who nobody told him to sexually violate his high school friend or this girl's in college and get accused of it credibly. That is not the fault of Ketanji Brown Jackson. But apparently, according to Lindsey Graham, she needs to pay for that. I'm just going to let you say your thoughts.
Well, I think that that's a very interesting point to start with, because I have looked at this as very much so a tale of two confirmations. If you look at the demeanor that Ketanji Brown Jackson has displayed throughout her entire confirmation hearing, she's been poised, she's been unflappable, and she's been brilliant. Imagine if she had had the same demeanor that Brett Kavanaugh displayed, the same disdain to just completely rebuff questions for senators. At one point, if you recall, during his confirmation, he literally said, "I drink beer because I like beer." He was being questioned about legitimate allegations of sexual assault, a criminal act. And here you have a woman, a black woman, who is being questioned about things that one decision and one sentencing out of literally hundreds. We're not talking about something criminal, and yet and still she's expected to have the level of poise, the level of demeanor that she's sitting there listening to questions that are absurd and that are ridiculous, and she's still smiling and she's still maintaining her composure. I think when you consider how that plays out with respect to the fact that they can't really attack her record and they're using this as political grandstanding, it says a lot about where our political discourse is, Joy. If you know that you're going to get more donations, more votes, more media, more camera time by being disagreeable in a space where there's no reason to be disagreeable, then what does that say about your ability to get things done as a legislator?
Well, they don't legislate because they're just performers, and they're trying right now, Joyce, to perform, as you said, for their base, right? For the QAnon people, they're constantly saying child pornography because they know that triggers QAnon, and they want them to vote Republican. I mean, this is very simple. We know what they're doing, but I'm struck by the fact that a woman who is a judge, who is already a very esteemed legal mind that everyone agrees because they keep putting her on the bench, on the federal bench. She was treated essentially like Anita Hill. She was treated like Christine Blasey Ford. Because she is a woman, she could not act like Kavanaugh. And I think what that says to women who are lawyers, to black women, is that the standard for us is that we have to always behave as an adult. The standard for white men is they can behave as a child and still get as far or further than we can. They sent that message very clear. Lindsey Graham, all the little mansplainers, all the little Confederacy crew that really sounded like they were in the 19th century still. They can behave that way because there's no constraints on them because of who they are. Your thoughts?
You know, there was the moment where Lindsey Graham questioned her this afternoon, only questioned is the wrong word to use, because he just continued to make a speech. He'd ask her a question, she'd start to answer, and 2 or 3 words in, he'd cut her off again. And it went on and on and on. And when Dick Durbin, the chair, finally called him on it, he looked aghast. Lindsey Graham said, no, she just won't answer my questions. And I frankly don't know how she maintained the composure just not to go across the table at him at that point. If you were looking for evidence of whether she had the appropriate judicial demeanor to be a Supreme Court justice, well, she certainly established that in spades this week. But,
yeah, absolutely.
You know, ultimately, what you got to worry about here, though, is how these senators treat these women. I was glad to see her not just sit there with a smile on her face. I was glad when those moments of the steel in her spine shone through and she sort of permitted herself to show a little bit of impatience on her face, because ultimately women shouldn't be treated like this. We shouldn't tolerate it. I hope one of the conversations that follows on to this sorry excuse for a confirmation hearing is a conversation about how she was treated, why she was treated that way. And of course, that is part of the importance of putting the first black Supreme Court justice, who's a woman, onto the court, because when you have a seat at the table, it changes how people have to behave.